excused, 'cause you're always late, overweight, and totally rude.
Hello, and welcome to the Creatively Unworthy Podcast, number 19. Is that right, Rebecca?
Yes.
I'm Christin.
I'm Rebecca.
I'm the Kristen's father, Larry.
And this is Jordan Ferguson, folks.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on the podcast.
Yes, he's a very special guest. We've been philosophical discussing life and unworthiness and creativeness and blah, blah, blah.
Philosophically, it's
philosophical discussions have been taking place. And I made some notes, but the most important, the reason I wanted him to join us on here is because he gave me some great advice. And that's how this started. We were chatting about this and that, and I mentioned I posted a video, a song online, a creative song, and I was being met with some judgment. And so I took it down, and then later I reposted it again. And I turned off the comments. But his response helped me turn the comments back on. And so that's part of it. If I may, the note that I want to lead with, our topic is confidence versus experience, confidence versus experience. Because he actually made me a graph and everything. He didn't even know we had a podcast. So this just happened organically. And then I found out later, it turns out he's been coaching sports and other, creative athletes, whatnot. So Jordan's pretty qualified for this little meet and greet. One of his favorite lines he said was, "Oh, I've met confident people. They suck." Like pretty much confidence versus experience. So that was a bunch of information I just said. So if you would like to say hello or anything to get it started, Jordan, I know you've been...
I was over-introduced. I don't know if qualified is the right word. Confidence I have in abundance. Don't get me wrong. If we're just talking about being confident, I can do that all day long. But not for any professional reason or anything. We like to call it blind confidence.
We normally ask for academic qualifications.
No.
Background experience.
Yeah.
Hey, quit razzing Jordan. All right, continue, Jordan.
But no, I love a good discussion, a good philosophical ramble, as it were. That's pretty much my forte. So anything you guys want to discuss, I'm definitely here.
Well, explain to me why you said confidence versus experience.
I think you were talking about the Dunning-Kruger effect graph that I showed you. Is that the image? So that's not actually mine. That's a couple of sociologists wrote this study back in the early 80s, and it's a illustration to explain the theory that they came up with. It's not really scientific at all. It's just, I showed it to you. It's a good illustration. What it's basically saying is that we start with zero confidence in any field. Think of I'll use something basic as a metaphor. So just like when you Wikipedia Napoleon Bonaparte, you don't know anything about Napoleon. That's the first thing you've learned about him. And then you read the Wikipedia profile and your brain tells yourself, now I know about Napoleon. I have learned about this. And you're very confident in your knowledge. And then you read a secondary source and your brain immediately goes, oh, this is much more complicated than I thought. And you start to lose confidence. And there's a natural curve that kind of, our confidence shoots up very drastically and then drops down very drastically. And then over a lot of learning, that confidence starts to turn into actual mastery of anything. So for a lot of us, when we hit that confidence threshold, when we start to lose confidence, like, oh my God, I don't really know anything, that is actually a sign of progress. That's a sign of growth, a necessary stage and you feel like you're falling off a cliff, but you're actually just losing the very ignorant confidence of, basic knowledge in a basic sense.
Let me ask you, you're talking about confidence in your knowledge of the subject.
Yeah, I think in this sense, but I think it applies to a lot of other fields outside of academic learning. We get confident immediately.
You're not talking about my personal confidence in my ability to do X. You're talking about, I hear something or I look something up. I mean, I like what you're saying. And then there's a confidence in what you know, and then you lose it.
Yeah, and I do think it applies to skill building as well. I work construction, so my stuff's not really artistically driven, but any task, you're told to build the shed. It's daunting. You go, oh, I don't know how to do this. I don't have any knowledge. But the development of those skills is where the confidence develops, and forcing yourself through that threshold of unconfidence, of knowing that you're at the bottom of the trench where you couldn't be any less confident in what you're doing. That is how the real, I don't want to say real confidence, but actual knowledge, actual skills develops. And that falling off the cliff of confidence is a natural step. That was kind of my takeaway, I guess, from it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Dad.
Rebecca, you started to say something before
I said that makes sense. Yeah.
I was going to say, one of the things I think about confidence is if you don't have confidence, you won't try whatever it is you're going to try. You won't try anything. So you need a certain amount of self-confidence that what you're going to do is going to succeed in building a shed or writing a book or singing, or finishing a song, right?
Absolutely. Going back to me and Kristin's original conversation on this, I think there's confidence kind of can become one of those loaded words where we need to make sure that we're clarifying terminology. We might be talking about 2 or 3 different concepts here,
Yeah.
Certainly, I think the inner confidence that I think you're referring to,
Right. Exactly.
Fear of societal response, fear of rejection, fear of how others will take it when they see my work here, I again use construction just for my own personal experience. When I finish a project and I like it, but I know that there's imperfections there. I built it. I know that there's imperfections behind the wall. So when someone else comes and approves or disapproves of the work, it means something to me. And I'm kind of a knowledgeable person that will look at that and say, oh, I see what you did here, and that's a good fix, or that was a shoddy fix. Those other people's opinions affect my self-worth. So that confidence to maintain the ability to keep producing even through the judgment or whatever, through that criticism there's an inner confidence from other people's reaction, and there's an inner confidence from your own knowledge, your own experience, that I don't think are necessarily the same emotion, the same experience.
Well, the emotion might be the same, but the pathway to it might be different.
Yeah, exactly.
Because confidence is, there's a large definition.
Yeah, exactly.
Confidence, self-confidence, confidence in, the political system, confidence in the government, confidence in my car. Every day we get up and you go out. You have a car, you go up, you turn on the key, you start it. You're confident that the car is going to run. And when it doesn't really affect you personally, but there's this, drop in, there's like, oh my God. And what happens? You'll never trust that car again. You might say you are, but, car manufacturers, one of the things that they do is that it's about confidence. Perfect example is right now is Tesla. They're having a big problem with confidence because 17 people have been in, the car will drive by itself, right? Except what they've found, which has come to the surface, is that 17 cases, and what's really funny is if there's a ambulance or fire truck in front of you, you might drive into it, and they don't know why.
It
But
recognizes all
God.
other vehicles except emergency vehicles.
Isn't that-
Gotta be this law.
That's
Perfect.
insane. But they just, and what they think is there might have something to do with the lights, or who knows what the hell it is, you know. But
It's the perfect conspiracy. The government is trying to kill injured
course,
people with
of
your
of
course.
course,
They tried with COVID.
Depending on your point of view, it's
Okay.
either Biden or
calm
Trump.
down.
Really,
calm
those
down.
17 people, they
Calm
were
down.
17 political officials.
Oh my God.
No, they were being targeted.
Sure.
Yeah.
But what happens is, on a serious note, people lose confidence. If they lose confidence, they won't buy the car. If they don't buy the car will go out of business. So this is it's a big subject. It
Or
covers a lot.
hopefully it will get cheaper and regular people can buy it.
It's
Then
like
just don't use the auto drive feature and just be like, la la la.
another example is like
If having a Tesla.
Huh?
Yeah, I
What'd
want
you
a
say?
Tesla. It
I have
drops
to
and
drive it myself. I'm not paying for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. We'll just take out that part of it.
I see. There's like Teslas up here. I live in Santa Cruz, and it looks like almost every other person has a Tesla. I do not know why, but I
I've
guess
only
because it's
seen like
Silicon
3
Valley.
Teslas in Oxford.
Huh?
I've only seen like 3 Teslas like ever in Oxford.
Oh, if you go into a Whole Foods parking lot, there's a battery section, and there's always
Of course,
5 to
Whole
20
Foods.
Right.
Tesla. Of course.
Those things run in conjunction.
Yeah.
You see a higher percentage of Teslas at the Whole Food than
At
in
the Whole Food. Because
Yeah.
those people have confidence in Whole Food. I
Yes.
myself, I drive past the Tesla and the Whole Food place because I know that a lot of their stuff is just hype. And I go down to the old Stop and Go that my son Logan told me about. And at the Stop and Go, I get the best meat. And
You can get organic things at a regular grocery store if you really want to for like half the price at Whole Foods.
all right. Well, just to bring it
Yeah.
back to
we
create,
can't go back. We
just
can't.
to bring it back.
It's too late now, Kristen.
No going back. That's not
Listen.
how time works, Kristen.
Oh, I don't know about that, sir. Well, okay, listen. Just a quick little example. The same thing you're talking about with the cars and the confidence. When I was in high school, I was learning to play guitar, and I wrote my first song ever. It was very dark, very depressing, very sad. Like just made
Very
you want
high
to slit
school.
your wrists,
Yeah.
And for me, that's what I needed apparently for
This
the
was
first
prime
song.
emo phase, 1998. I was there.
Yeah. I think so.
It's teenagers. I mean,
Connor
teenagers are
Oberst
like
was
that, though.
huge that summer. We were very sad children.
You're very depressed. So the point is, my mom and brother walk up to my room and they're listening from the hallway, and they come in and they're like, "What? Play that song you were playing for me." So I did, and when I was done, they were like, "Holy crap, that is so depressing." And that's all they said, and they left. And I was like, I just bared my like internal heart and soul to you guys, and all you can say is it's depressing and leave. Like when they do something cool, I like boast and build them up and whatnot. And I was just left like thinking, oh fuck, well, I guess people aren't going to want to hear my music because it's too damn dark and depressing. So I stopped sharing it with them.
No.
I just didn't share it with them.
That's a really popular genre, dark and depressing music.
And it's
I
not
mean,
like I wanted to sing dark and depressing. That's just what I needed to do at the time. You know, I had no.
Well, so did
I
Kurt
was like, oh, I'm
Cobain.
going to be.
Cool, yeah.
So did Kurt Cobain, and he made a career out of it.
Exactly. Well, yeah.
You know, if you take out the drug part of it, which is,
Well, I did plenty of trucks.
but I love Kurt Cobain. Everybody loved Kurt. I loved him, and he's not even in my, he's like most guys my age wouldn't even know who I'm talking about.
I'm
But
impressed.
listen-
You know who?
Huh?
I'm impressed. You know who Kurt
Oh my
Cobain is.
God, are you serious? No, I loved it. I loved his music, and I always liked that tall guy that was in the background that kind of looked like he didn't know what was going to happen. Remember the guy that played bass? He's
Oh
I
my
always,
God.
is he going to kill himself
Oh
today?
my God. I know exactly what you mean.
No,
Entire heart-shaped
would
box
do.
music video. I know exactly what you mean.
Doesn't he? Doesn't he look like he's
Kurt
standing there
Cobain
with
and Dave Grohl make a band, and then
Yeah.
this guy plays bass. We don't really know how he got
a-
here.
They don't know how he got there. He's standing there going like,
He
God, I
doesn't
hope
know
he doesn't,
either.
hope he doesn't kill himself tonight.
Kids box. I know exactly what you mean.
That's too funny.
I've never
But-
thought of it that way. He does look like alarmed or just like concerned.
You know,
That's-
this is a huge problem in acting, in music. There's depressing stuff. Kristen sent me all this. I never ever criticized ever once because I liked her music. I didn't care. Some of the things that I write, is depressing, and people don't buy my books. They don't buy my books about Vietnam. It's too depressing. They don't want to stand in it. Here's what I always thought was interesting. People will pay a fortune to go see blood, homicide, murder, everything. But the minute that it's about a real story about blood and homicide and murder, which was the Vietnam War, they don't want to buy it. They don't want to read about it. And I've always thought, why is it when it's true, we hate it? But if it's fiction, we love the blood. Give me the blood.
Because people are trying to escape from reality, and like when they're reading fiction and stuff like that, so it's like fun. It's like
What's on every
horror
television
detached
show?
from yourself. Like it's not scary because like it really happened. It's
Mhm.
like scary because you're imagining it.
You're in the fictional dream.
Yeah.
What do you guys
There's
think?
like a detached.
I can't watch anything but comedy for the last 10 years.
Mm.
Otherwise,
See?
I get depressed and quiet, and I start flashing back on all the shitty, horrific
Hmm.
experiences I've been through personally. So, I guess
So
I agree in
true.
that way. Like, I know myself now to where I like comedy. I have had way too much real life trauma to happen in real life, and I don't find it entertaining on my days off. Like, I'm not going to go drudge up the past.
You don't
just
like a
because
good
it's
Nazi
awesome.
show? You don't like a good Adolf
Or
Hitler
nice,
goes-
good, like,
Goes
good
to-
old fashioned raping.
goes to
You know,
Rome?
Oh.
no. What the fuck?
Uh,
Why? Why
I
would
gotta
anyone?
say though, I'm
Girl with
I'm the
dragon
person
tattoo
who
wasn't
likes
your-
true
wasn't
crime.
the dag?
What'd you say? We didn't hear you. Say again.
Girl with the dragon tattoo. That's not
Yeah.
like your idea of a good time.
No,
Girl, the dragon tattoo wasn't too
I
bad.
lived that basic. No, that not
Yeah.
in my own way.
Excellent.
But yes, no.
Grudges up the old trauma, though. Absolutely.
Sure, it's hitting some nerve. Well, here's an interesting movie that I love, and it's called Tropic Thunder.
A thinker.
Yeah.
Tropic Thunder that Ben Stiller produced, wrote, and starred in. He takes on a subject that we're not allowed to take on, which is the Vietnam War. He makes fun of it, but he doesn't make fun of the war. He makes fun of, it's a movie about making the movie.
Yeah.
And so what he's done, I think it's like one step removed from the war. So they can make, they can make fun of, some guy gets his guts shot, lay out on his stomach, which has really happened to people. I've got a friend that happened to, and puts their guts back in. But in this movie, it's funny. At least it's funny to me. Maybe I've got a weird sense of humor, but what do you think, Kristen? Do you like
I
that?
think it's a lot easier to teach with humor than it is with drama. It's a much more lighter feeling in the body, and it's fun. Anything's fun is going to be easier to retain.
You guys seen Jojo Rabbit? Oh,
Yeah.
These lines. That's like my favorite movie because it's just taking the story of Adolf Hitler and the rise of Nazis and turning it into a children's story and a comedy, lighthearted comedy.
Yeah.
No, I
Hitler's
haven't
imaginary.
Yeah, I haven't seen that either. I haven't heard of that
Netflix.
before.
It's amazing.
Isn't it on Netflix?
His imaginary friend is Hitler, and it's just absolute. It's
Oh
the
my
best.
Yeah.
But it's that concept. Instead of being terrified and horrified by it, it's like just laugh at it. The reality is what it is, whether you want to look at it or not. Might as well maintain your sense of humor.
It's
about
like
these things.
I don't know. I feel like if you give it power to be, I don't know, you let it win.
Well, you're the one that you talk about somebody that writes dark.
Yeah.
She writes
I do
about
like dark
vampires, and it's great
I'm actually
stuff.
a fan of true crime shows too, all those drama and scary things. And I think I've had the opposite experience from you, Christian. I've lived a very sheltered life. I've never been out of California or like 3 hours away from my house. I've never like gone camping or like.
What? You've never
Fix
gone
that. We have to
camping?
fix that.
Kristen, get on that one.
I've got a 10-man teepee.
But I've never done a lot of that stuff. I'm kind of like a homebody. So like when I see all that stuff, it's like, I don't know, when I was a kid, it was like I was processing it through like watching it and stuff. And I feel like that's why I like all that spooky things now. So it's like safe experiencing that. Like I don't want to go out and find trouble, but through fiction, I can kind of like play with the idea of it in my brain in a safe way.
Look, if Netflix was around when I was growing up, I probably wouldn't have done half the dangerous stuff I did because I could have vicariously lived through the movies. But we didn't have all that back when I was.
That in video games, I feel like it just, because you can be a bad guy or a good guy, right? Or you could watch a show about a bad guy like Dexter, and you could be like, oh my god, that's like.
Was he a bad
That's
guy?
gross.
Is Dexter a bad guy or a good guy?
Dexter is my hero.
If you're murdering people,
you're murdering bad guys.
Yeah, but you become a bad guy to defeat bad guys. I mean,
I would totally court Boondock Saints. What?
Boondock Saints.
I was like, yeah,
beautiful. Boondocks, all of Boondocks.
I'm gonna kill all the demons walking the earth.
If you're killing for good, you can be one of the good guys. This is America.
Yeah.
No, I mean, morally, I think that's the question. Is like, I don't know.
If you're saving,
I'm pretty sure it still makes you murdered
by murdering one man that's evil as fuck. I think it's okay.
Yeah, but then you're stooping to their level. It's like I don't know. It's a whole argument in itself.
You have to be careful about judgment in all of these areas. And what we're talking about is the creatively unworthy. And what we want to do is reinforce the fact that you could, just listening to this, that if you want to write about vampires, or if you enjoy watching, Hitler's goofy characters, or
he's an imaginary friend, you said?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's a real movie. It was a big movie or whatever. I'm not making it up. It's fantastic.
Great movie. And we're living through a period of time right now, especially in this next week, you're going to hear a lot about Afghanistan and what's happened. And there's going to be a lot of finger pointing and political bullshit and all of those kinds of things. And there's a lot of veterans, which I know several of them that were in Afghanistan, and they're going to go through some really tough feelings. They're the same feelings that I went through when Saigon fell. And that is kind of a feeling of, wow, we did all this for nothing. And, 20 years we were in Afghanistan, and that's going to be all erased. And yet you've got to kind of stand back and look at what motivates these Afghans to literally, they never gave up. It's their country. So it's like we haven't learned this lesson that we can't just go into another country and expect I don't want this to be a political thing, but expect that, the whole country to go, oh my God, the United States is here. It's so great. No, they like, oh my God, can you send me an iPhone? That's what they really want.
Yeah.
But their own country. And, you're going to hear about.
Isn't that what everyone wants?
Huh? No, I'm joking. It's my sense of humor.
I want that. When I come into a new company, I want to be the savior. I want to fix everything.
Yeah.
Well,
that's
I feel like it's hard for Americans not to feel that way, because it's like we have so much to give. Why aren't we sharing with everybody, or why aren't we helping other people if we have that? Let
me finish my point where I was going to go with this, because this could be a real heated subject, and I don't want it to be.
Yeah, let's fight. Oh, okay.
Except,
I'm ready though.
Except you're going to hear stories of, women that are going to be, going back to the dark ages. I relate to this because this is exactly what happened in Cambodia. Exactly what happened when the Khmer Rouge came in they started murdering everybody. Now, I don't know that the Taliban is going to murder everybody, but, they suppress women, everybody. And we ran back to America and pretended like this wasn't going on. A lot of people still don't even know what happened there because there wasn't, a media. And anybody that was creative, by the way, was executed.
I heard everybody who wore glasses was
Yeah, if you wore glasses.
Like on the spot.
Because that meant that you were educated. So the radical communists did not want that. And there's actually there was a famous girl, I can't remember her name, but she was like this amazing singer.
Joan Baez? Joni Mitchell.
Cambodian singer. You wouldn't know her name.
Oh.
She was with.
I thought you were talking about the girl who sang during the bombing. Sorry.
Cambodia, not Vietnam.
Oh, gotcha.
This girl, she was with the Cambodian space Cambodian. Forget the name of her band, but it was really famous before the war. So she was on the list.
Had like a space program before the war.
No. It was the name of her group. Don't get caught off on that. I was talking out loud. Cambodian Space Project. That was a band.
Oh.
She sang in it, and she had this incredible voice. Well, what the Khmer Rouge did was they tricked her by saying, "Oh, we really love your. Yeah, I heard your voice. We really love your voice." And after she sang it, then they realized that was her. So they raped her and they murdered her.
Oh my God.
I don't know whether it was at the rape or first murder, but she was murdered and thrown in a river. And so what I'm saying, why I bring that up is people in Cambodia, they would know her name like that. And she's like really super famous, and she's an artist. And sometimes being an artist means people that aren't artists hate you. The Khmer Rouge were ultra communist, and they wanted to go bring the world back to year zero, which meant there was no music, there was no art, there was no creativity, there was nothing but slavery and work. How would you like to live in that society? And so that's out there. That's out there. That's out in the world. It still exists. I just read the Cambodian newspapers today, and the guy that was the head of the Khmer Rouge tried to appeal his case. And so, up came on the newspapers a whole bunch of this.
You can't get away with that. That's a crime against humanity. Even if you were getting orders or
you can't get away with it. No, you can't get away with it. They got away with it.
Oh
there was only 3 people that were convicted that went to prison, if you look that up. So what I'm saying is we have to be.
There's a hell then. So.
No, I'm trying to make a point. The point is we have to be aware of the world and aware of our surroundings, and we can't just flippantly, which in America we seem to just do whatever we want to do or say whatever we want to say. The rest of the world doesn't have that opportunity. They don't have the kind of freedom that we have, and they might have confidence, but a confidence erodes really quick when you get shot in the head with a bullet, Sorry to bring
Yeah.
Get it.
But that's it. See, I just read I lived there for 9 years, and it's one of the greatest countries I've ever lived in. But yet they're at the bottom of all of the UN metrics in terms of poverty, in terms of health and everything. But they're number 4 in the world for what? Friendliness to the people for expats that live there, which would be, if you guys went there, this is one of the most friendly countries in the world. How could a country that was so violent and so committed such atrocity be so friendly? Discuss it with yourself. I'll come back and.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's hard to do. You
amazing?
gotta turn the other cheek. They're the experts in turning the other cheek. Apparently, that's what it sounds like.
I don't know if it's turn the other cheek.
Well, if their whole lineage was like wiped out and the children of the children of the children are still
I
pleasant.
think
It's impressive. Or maybe they have hope that not everyone is.
I think it's being human. I think when you live in a country that's so repressed, that was so held down, that every little gesture, which, you know, during the Khmer Rouge, a little gesture could get you murdered. Like Rebecca said, glasses could get you executed.
Yeah.
Actually, kissing could get you sent to prison. Anything, any emotion. If somebody found pictures that you kept of your family, and you could end up going to prison. So I think when that was so repressed, that now just because I look in their eyes and I see love and respect and just these amazing people, and I want everybody to go there.
Grateful for it not to be like that anymore.
Yeah, that's probably part of it. It's because they realize, which we don't. We can say we do, unless you're black and you've been beat the shit out of, like, you know, by white guys that are full of hatred and rage,
Or a woman that's been raped repeatedly for years and years and years and forced.
No, really, just
Right.
any woman, Christian. Doesn't even stop right there. Just any woman, really.
Yeah.
anyone, yeah. But
Basically, just not us, Larry.
No white men allowed to feel love. What?
I mean, are you ginger?
That's basically it.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Well, that is why I'm so excited about this project I'm working on with Dad, about the history of Ho Chi Minh and
Vietnam,
what caused what in the war, like going back to World War I and World War II. Like Dad explains it in a very simplified way, that anyone can understand it, and then that'll help hopefully fill in some of the missing histories.
Do you know why I can explain it in a simplified way? Because I don't take the side of America, like in every fucking explanation of every fucking war we've been in. We're always the good guys. We're always right. It's, you know, all you got to do is listen to, I can't listen to these people, you know, I can't listen to politicians. As soon as their mouth starts going like that, out comes some kind of bullshit defense, or that I'm, you know, hey, it wasn't me. I'll tell you what, I didn't do that. Or make America great.
Are you implying that letting Henry Kissinger write the history of the Vietnam Wars might be a conflict of interest? Is that what you're saying?
I hope, you know, one of my greatest, and I don't want to come off like this, but I would love to kidnap Henry Kissinger, take him to Cambodia, execute him, and throw him in one of the pits that children were thrown in. And I would watch him squirm and wiggle in the dirt as I threw lye on him and let him stay there all night in pain, screaming.
I'm glad you don't want to come off like that, though, Larry.
I don't want to come off that way.
Yeah.
Don't paint me into this corner. This is what Christin grew up with, and you wonder why she had, you know, PTSD problems.
Well, it's funny you say that. I mean, this actually kind of brings it full circle back to the beginning of the podcast, because a song I was talking about with Jordan was a political, like, spoof song. It was set to Queen, and it was about how, you know, Obama was voted out and Trump was brought in,
and those were some very despondent weeks for all of us. I remember.
It was depressing as well. It was like just this feeling of like, what? There's no, what can we do now? We just have to wait and see what happens. Jesus.
You know, this really all, depressing. Believe it or not, all of this kind of makes sense, even though I took us off into the dark side of humanity. But we have to, and this comes back to Jordan's thing about confidence, we have to be able to maintain hope when there's no hope. You know, you have to go through periods when there's no hope and still maintain if you're an artist, how do you do that? How do you maintain that spark? And that's the trick.
How do you protect your confidence?
How do you protect your confidence? How do you protect
Tell us, Coach Jordan.
I don't.
George.
Coach and Jordan. George. That's your new name. Sorry. Tell us, Coach Jordan. That's what I meant.
All right. So try to stay in this theme. All of that dark side of humanity stuff. This is where it's not this thing in Cambodia or this thing in Afghanistan. This is the lineage of us. This is the human experience. We are descendants of genocide and rape across the board. And that is traumatic, obviously. And as a result, we are individually and collectively deeply disturbed and traumatized. That's why reading real history or watching movies, learning about real history is traumatizing, because the story is traumatic. It's unreal. We are a species that suffers from Stockholm syndrome. That's basically what it comes down to. We are a species suffering from Stockholm syndrome, and we worship the thing that destroyed us, that oppresses us.
I heard a great Colin, the guy on Saturday Night Live, Colin
Jost.
Anyway,
The guy that does the weekend updates.
Yeah.
He used to a long time ago.
Colin Jost.
He said we're the ancestors of the pricks.
We're the ancestors of everyone. The descendants of everyone.
No, we're not the ancestors of everyone. Nice guys didn't make it.
In the Bible, we all come from Adam and Eve, right?
The nice guys were pretty much whacked.
Well, I hear that point, but we are all the descendants of both sides. I feel like this culture especially gets really hung up in these ridiculous binary groupings of people that have nothing to do with reality at all. Culturally, Black culture and white culture are very real things, and I'm not trying to minimize the reality of the culture that we live in, but there is no such thing. There's just people wandering around the planet and fucking. And then when they go to one place and only fuck each other for a long time, they develop similar attributes. And then when they wander around the planet, they all turn brown. It's not even that complicated. There is no such thing as race. It's an ever-evolving, ever-changing matrix based on the people that are immigrating to that location at any given time. The idea that these are the things that I, as a white man, am the descendant of the oppressors, and someone else, as a Black woman or a Cambodia woman, is the descendant of the oppressed, it's not true. We are all the descendant. Like, my lineage so my people are Irish, Scottish, mostly. We were murdered and brutalized and raped by the Romans, and then basically became Romans and brutalized a bunch of other people, and then turned on ourselves, brutalized the Irish, who were us, and then turned around and brutalized a bunch of other people. But my ancestors are the woman being raped and the soldier raping her in every one of those stories. I am the lineage of both sides of that. And this idea that any one of us represents the oppressed or the oppressor, that's all relative to your own actions. You know what that's all on you. I feel like a lot of this, our society gets very hung up in these weird binary traps where you're this either or thing. You're either Black or white, you're either man or woman, you're either Christian or atheist, and they're all nonsensical. Nothing in reality works that way. It's not a binary universe. It's
I don't quite even know what the word binary means.
Either or, like looking at life as a toggle switch. If you're not gay, you're straight. Just turn it on or off. If you're not Black, you're white. When nothing really works like that. We don't. We live in a dynamic universe, a globe, not a line. It's not left or right.
It does work that way. There were dinosaurs. At one time, there were dinosaurs, and we were, had to hide under rocks to avoid them. And That's not true. Yeah, it's true. I mean, we're descendants from some small. You don't believe in evolution?
No, I believe in evolution, but we're.
If you go back, way back, the strong survived and the weak were wiped out. Neanderthal. The
strong isn't like the physically strongest in that, right? Like the survivors are the most attuned to their environment, not like the physically biggest and strongest.
Well, at one time that was true. The dinosaurs were the biggest and the strongest, and they ruled the earth for hundreds of millions of years. We've only been around for a million or so years.
I
We've
think
been around that
Jordan's,
long.
I think more what Jordan's saying is
As a
like,
human race, we haven't been on
America
the planet.
especially kind of separates ourselves into these categories, but we're all just kind of
Human.
we're all humans. So
Yeah, but
Brutally so.
yeah. And
In
I
terms
can
of
your
agree
beliefs,
with that because I
some of
was
us all
just
came
thinking
from-
the other day about like
Some of us came from Big Bang. Some of us.
Some of us came from
Yeah.
smaller bangs.
yeah.
Good
I
God.
was just thinking about that the other day, and like the dialogue that gets thrown around of what I don't know, like the virtue signaling and victimhood kind of mentality, where it's like, because of what happened to me, I'm either an antagonist to everybody, or or I'm the victim of everything because of whatever. But like there's like what's happening in the Middle East right now, there's like real people going through that, and like there's actual like I don't know, there's still like the sex trade, right? Like people are being kidnapped and like sold, and nobody's focusing on that. They're just focusing on like, oh, like 800 years ago this happened to my people, or 800 years ago this happened to me, or oh, I remember when this happened. And it's like, yeah, but what about things that we can solve
Right now.
and right now, because it's like
As people though, we all, and like we love to
Yeah.
expose it in other people, but we all have a real bad narcissistic lens that we view the world through. That's just the human condition. That's not a judgment against anybody's deal. Like
yeah
to a large extent, you can't help but only care about the things that affect you. So
that's
if you're Armenian, the Armenian genocide is much more important than the Jewish Holocaust. Whereas
Exactly.
if you're Jewish, that's going to be a much more important story. And that's not to minimize or compare anybody's tragedy, but we're all drawn to the thing that is our history, affects us directly, you know.
But there's
yeah,
extraordinary
which is
people.
fair, but
There's extraordinary people that come about in the midst of all of this, of the human condition. And for the most part, the human condition, when you go back and read through history, is pretty bad. And it, and then there'll be somebody that will, like, there's a picture in the Holocaust Museum of a Polish SS guard that would not execute Poles. And so the commander of the Nazis at the time, SS was like, these guys are killing machines. He told him, he goes, if you're not going to participate, go join them. And there's a picture of him. They ripped off his Nazi shit, of him walking voluntarily over to the group that was about to be executed. I've always thought, could I do that? Could I do that? Could I do, rather than execute my own people? I think I would do that, especially if Christin was in the group, I'd go join her.
Yeah, I think you would.
But could I do that?
I'd take 10 of them out while I was doing it too.
I know you would never let that happen. You would get them. But I mean, that's an extraordinary photograph that, it's beyond belief, that
Ultimate sacrifice.
yeah.
Humans can
I'm
be
not saying-
cruel and they can be ruthless. I mean,
In any situation as well. So
Now,
But also, I want to say though, I'm not discounting history, and I think we should all forget about it. It's just like, I don't know, like if we all focus on that instead of the people who are suffering like right now, like the Middle East or North Korea, or like people being sex trafficked, like it's just going to be one of those things we remember like 100 years from now, like, oh my God, that was so horrible, but nobody did anything,
Well, the good thing about America,
right?
there's a lot of
What?
negative things, but we try to do things, I mean,
We've
I-
made
I
a lot
was-
of progress, right?
we made a tremendous amount of progress. And I don't mean to paint such a bleak or negative thing, but if
history is pretty bleak, to be fair.
if
though.
humans are left,
Not you, it's history.
Yeah.
humans are left to do what they want, it doesn't take much to see where they end up going, if there's no rules, no laws, or no
Absolutely.
common consensus, you know.
Yeah.
And then the people that usually are executed right off the bat are the artists. You know, you saw that in
The witches.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, exactly. Hello, bunch of women.
How about we all agree to stop
Those
murdering
350
each
women
other?
are gonna have to go. They're
Yeah.
gonna be a problem.
They're healing people with
Natural
herbs.
healers.
They're
A
insane.
lot of people don't realize that when I say that Kristen was no, let's not say Kristen. Let's say Rebecca was a witch. I declared
You
Rebecca
can
was
say
a
I'm a
witch.
witch.
I was
Never
actually
mind.
a pagan
Never
for a really long time, for 6 years.
I practiced Wiccan. I still
Yeah.
do.
Okay.
I'm
so
no
say
longer
I
pagan.
went
but-
Who needs it to rain?
I went
Yeah.
to the the head of our community, and I said, I found a witch. Well, I would get, and even if you were married to Rebecca, I would be entitled to her land for turning her in. So the people that did that. So
What
there was a
man
real,
created that law?
Well,
Yeah.
first of all, wait a second. There's no way that Kristen would own land in any of these stories. As
That's
a
true.
anyway.
That's true.
no, Kristen would have been killed right off the bat. So
Yeah,
was
if
already-
me and Kristen
that
were
was off a
married, we'd
cliff.
be killed just for that. I mean,
Witch or no, we're not going to be giving you any farms
First of all,
around here.
yeah.
she's
Yeah.
too, you know, she'd go
But
and
like,
slap the commander of the faithful in the face, and that'd be into her. So.
my legit history is my bio dad side of the family is Jewish, like from Germany, Jewish, around the time they moved over, kind of thing. So they were
You know,
affected
it's
by
called
that.
escaped. They escaped.
Yeah, they escaped. I don't know
It's
if it
not
was
moved over.
well, they escaped, but I don't think it was during the. I think it was like almost right before, but like
Before,
a lot of their
people got out
family's
there.
gone, you know.
Wow.
Like,
Yeah.
and,
Well, now that I brought everybody
Yeah.
down with my
but
comment,
I'm saying
wasn't
if we
trying
think
to-
about that stuff all the time, like if that was the only thing that came out of my mouth, is like, oh my god, like my ancestors, like people that I was directly connected to, suffered this horrible thing, right? I don't know. I don't feel like it like we should learn about it and talk about it, but it shouldn't be like your badge that you wear wherever you go to talk about your suffering all the time. Because like there's people that are suffering right now that we could help, because you can't change history. Like you can't rewrite it. We can't there's nothing we can do about that now. But we could solve
But can
something.
you understand the present without understanding history?
No,
Can you
that's
really
what I'm
know
saying.
like,
That's why I'm
yeah.
saying you
can you
shouldn't
solve
forget
the
about
problem
it.
of Palestine
Yeah.
without understanding what happened to the Jewish
Exactly.
people?
I'm
You
not
know,
saying
that-
don't think about it, don't ever talk about it. I'm
Keep
saying know
repeating.
your history, learn about it, but don't be like wherever I go,
Now, how
I'm
does this-
crippled because of this. Like, I don't
Just
know.
because you were spit on by a certain race doesn't mean every
Yeah.
member of
Oh,
that race is
yeah.
going to spit on you in the
Well,
future.
like-
Like,
the
there's
past
not going to
of-
be peace in the
Sure.
Middle East. I guess what I'm saying is if I'm
You know-
too damaged by what's happened to my ancestors to move
We
forward. you know?
we talk about
Be here now.
Is there going to be peace
All
in the
of
middle?
that on you.
We talk about is there going to be peace in the Middle East? All you got to do is look at the homicide report for Chicago last night. We ain't got peace in America.
No peace.
Yeah, I know.
There's no peace in America.
There's
There is
pockets. There's pockets of peace, I feel it. Pockets.
Yeah.
Moments of bliss and peace.
moments.
Amazing, by the way. I highly recommend them, but it's
But-
not a permanent state.
People are being oppressed and like homosexuals are being thrown off buildings and like I don't know,
More than
like
it's ever been at the same time. Like those
Yeah.
things, you can't let them get to you. It's better now than it's ever been. Like
it
to be
has.
homosexual,
But I feel like
to be
that's
a
more
minority.
like in the I don't know, not in that country,
You're just-
but more like in China and America and well, China's actually getting pretty bad, isn't it too? With the
It's better in China than it's ever been. It's
yeah,
just
that is
It's
true.
better in China.
they-
terrible, terrible
better in
They
stuff.
throw you in
Cambodia.
jail for calling
It's
the
better in Vietnam.
ruler any bad names though,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
kind of not good. I
There's
gotta say,
terrible things. I'm not trying to say
Yeah.
it's peaches and
Progress, not
it is
perfection.
more.
Yeah,
It is more
I'm saying
peaceful
it's
than
going
it's
well.
ever been.
You know, there's studies
Relatively.
now that show that this is the most peaceful period
Yeah.
in history of
Absolutely.
the world. Of the
Yeah.
world. This is the
Yeah.
most peaceful time. We're living in the most peaceful time. And yeah,
It's unbelievable.
something's going on here and
Yeah.
something's going on there. Those are isolated, but there's no world war going on. Most of history
Very
is
true.
world war after the next world war, you know.
There's not
Huge.
even really any big wars going on right now.
That's what I mean. We're in the most peaceful
Yeah.
period in history, which is
We've achieved hegemony.
Yeah. Yay. We could still be better.
We have no
But I
enemies,
do
guys.
agree.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have this theory. I have a theory about men and why, people like Donald Trump pop up and
Oh no.
gather
Too political, though.
followers.
We're kind of
finish.
bouncing down this road.
Just do a political podcast. We'll
Okay.
get back together one day.
As soon as I say Donald Trump, Rebecca.
Yeah, because people get really triggered whenever you mention him. Like it starts
love
like,
him.
yeah.
Now I
That's why I
can't
took
remember
the
why I
song off
mentioned
YouTube. Oh,
Wait, but triggering people is clickbait. I'm confused.
Yeah.
it's true. Damned if you do,
I guess-
damned if
I
you
guess you're not wrong.
He touched on a nerve, and you may not like this, but there's a bunch of hillbillies that live in the United States and a bunch of backwards, very uneducated, and educated people that bought into what he said.
Yeah.
There are neo-Nazis in this country, and you may not like it, but they're there, and
There's
they
quite a few.
Hey,
But I wouldn't
There's
say everybody's a neo-Nazi though, because
didn't say that. I said there
I
are people that he speaks to, and we have to accept that they're part of our culture. They're there,
Supremacy is alive and well. To me, it doesn't have to have anything to do with Hitler. Like white supremacy, black supremacy, American supremacy. Supremacy is a terrible ideology.
American supremacy.
Terrible ideology, and a lot of these people fall victim to it. In different ways. I suppose we all do, just not as drastically as some of the more vocal ones amongst us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, even when people try to be, well, I just read an article on what's the big human rights, not Oxfam, but the human rights organization in, oh shoot, I can't think of the name.
OSHA? Or what is that?
No, that's not OSHA.
Yeah.
No. Human
Completely
rights
off.
in Cambodia has always been a big topic. Well, now they've gotten off into their they're called NGOs, non-governmental agencies. I wish I could look up my notes because I just read about.
You can look up your notes.
About this.
Check out your notes.
You guys talk amongst yourselves.
Talk amongst yourselves.
How long?
So
I don't know. I feel like talking about politics is bad, but also
Why?
I was going to change it back to creativity.
yeah.
But politics and creativity share.
But I don't know. I don't like demonizing people. I know there's a lot of bad people in the country on both sides, but I feel like the last couple elections, people really did a good job of like demonizing everybody who disagrees with them. Everybody on the left was a radical, everybody on the right was a radical, everybody's a bad guy.
Absolutely.
And like 50% of the country is your enemy. And like you should be scared of your neighbor. And I don't know, I really don't like that kind of thinking because I don't know, like you hear stories of like I lost all my friends because they voted differently than me, or they said this, or everybody said that, or like even people who voted for Bernie were like getting I don't know, I guess it triggers me too because I don't want to think about it. I don't want to talk about it.
Dark time.
It's dark.
Yeah.
Well, what
That's why the world needs more artists.
Yeah.
Depending on your perspective, it's either all Biden's Trump or all Biden or Trump's fault. There's no room for nuance.
And everybody's evil and everybody's mean.
Yeah, no,
don't trust anybody. And God, it's like.
Well, what I was going to say was this particular.
Trust us at least.
Yeah, no. I'm talking about what the media said. If you watch the news on both sides, that's all I did during the election is just listen to both sides of the news, and I'd just be like, oh my God, like
dystopic, right?
Yeah, it's like
living in idiocracy.
You can't.
Yeah, exactly.
I just read Harry Potter too, and it's exactly like when the bad guys were taking over. Everybody was
Seriously.
Evil. All the bad guys. It's like what you don't know is that Voldemort's really behind everybody, even Trump, even Biden. And he's just, it's just setting it up for like the real evil coming in or whatever.
Like,
yeah. And we don't even know who it is because why would they reveal themselves? They're just going to put their puppets in the office, right? And get everybody riled up. And if they get taken out, they're still in power doing whatever they want to do. So it's
Well,
it makes you feel so helpless. Like you have no idea what's going on because both sides are saying the other side is out to get you. So everybody's out to get you.
I'm still waiting for a third side. Where's the third side?
Hi, Christin.
Hi.
Hi, over here.
I vote for no one. How about
Wait,
that?
if I could interject here, I'm gonna use that and tie this back into where we started with Kristin's, worried about the Facebook comments on her song post.
Please.
Sorry for the rant. I'm just gonna.
No, that was a good one.
Down.
That was a great rant.
Yeah.
So both sides of this, though, the political triggering and the online individual, the all of the things that we become afraid of, this constant opinion overload on our lives in everything, the things we're doing, the things happening in the world. We're just being bombarded with average people's opinions on everything all the time.
Yeah.
A lot, both in the political sphere and in the artistic realm, your own creation. That confidence, in my experience, that confidence has to be rooted in not getting, if your self-image, if your worth is determined by these people's opinion, then that's what's going to get you in trouble to begin with. It doesn't have anything to do with the quality or the value, inherent worth of your art, of your creation. It's that if your image is based on other people's reaction to it as an artist, then you're always going to be at the whim of public perception. And I mean, realistically, in the history of art, almost all of the people we recognize as the masters were spit on in their own time. It's very, very rare for an actual artistic genius to be recognized by their society, because society is inherently stupid and swimming in a stream. And they love Britney Spears in every generation. They love a pop phenomenon, but they're not looking at the deeper subtlety of the art behind it. It's like 3 generations down the road that somebody else looks at it and is like, dude, you guys, Picasso's a freaking genius. Like way later though, every time. You guys, Van Gogh is really good. Why'd we make him do all that? It happens every time, So like a lot of that, the political sphere as well, if you're getting drawn by both sides and caught in this opinion overload from, it's people's opinions. Like everybody's got them. I got opinions on everything. They don't mean that much. Like it's really like, but then other people's opinions will just screw with my self-worth so bad. Oh my gosh.
I've got a question for you, because you're nailing it.
Yeah.
Why is it I can have, like a book that I've written, I can have 300 positives and the one negative, I go right to it.
Especially if the negative hits really hard, right? Like if they're it's brutal.
And they know how. This is what social media has done. Yeah. And for the artist, I hear, you hear this, like a lot of actors will say in some song, singers will say this, they don't look at their, they don't follow their comments, because you get, we're at the root, we're kind of people pleasers, and
exactly.
We want to please people. And one of the things, I want my art to please people. It pleases me. And so one of the things, Chris and I have talked about this, because I've lived through this my whole life, is I'm an artist. The only way I've ever made money is by art, is by selling books. I've found that I have to narrow down my group of people that I want to impress to 2 or 3. And one of the things I tell Christin is, I don't tell other people about this book I'm working on. I tell her, but I don't talk about it at all, because I don't want the criticism, but I also don't want it to go, oh, this is the greatest thing I've ever heard, because that robs me also, right? The motivation to get through. So I think
that's all the dopamine you need. Why even write it, Somebody
Yeah.
already loves it. They already thought it was a great idea.
Fun.
Yeah.
So that you've hit on the top, you've hit on it. And I think the solution is, be aware of, what's all going around and protect your confidence, however you can do that.
And lean in to being abnormal, to being unordinary, to being authentic. Lean into being something, break the mold that you're told to be, and then you could possibly be like Picasso or masters of our past, because they didn't follow the rules. They broke that mold, and some of them, while they were alive, got to enjoy the bounty that brought. But most of them died before people started appreciating it. But I think the moral of this whole, or the point of this whole discussion is, it's good to be different, and it's good to, like you said earlier, have a small group that you do bounce ideas off of, but don't internalize the world's opinions while you're creating, because then you won't. It's hard to be authentic when you're following rules, right?
Well, unless you're writing about what's going on in the world, then you kind of go.
I guess, or if you're a mathematician, then you got to follow the rules too.
But authentic is necessarily unique, right? Like if you're
unique,
you
yeah.
have to be though. Like if you're trying to follow a formula, be like somebody else that's really successful, or even we all have idols or people that we aspire to. But if you're trying to do that, you're necessarily not being authentic. And again, not that those aren't necessary steps on the journey. We don't, it takes time to develop that voice. But that, as the viewer, for myself, like what I'm looking at or listening to artistically, anything, it's the stuff that appeals to me is always there's only going to be maybe 40 of us that like this, guaranteed. Like my stuff is not going to be culturally acceptable in a general, hardly ever. My music is random gutter punk that no one likes but me, you know what I mean? But there are, I say I'm the only one, but then you go to an Andrew Jackson Jihad show and you find 300 other people just like you, no matter what your thing is. Go there and you'll find a bunch of other people that think this is the coolest shit around. So
Exactly.
So no matter what your thing is, if you're not being accepted, your art isn't being accepted, that's a question of audience, not of creation. That your thing is accepted by someone, I promise you, no matter what it is. There are people out there that think it's amazing, but they're just, it's a matter of finding your audience and not getting bogged down in the opinions of really simple minds most of the time.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
There's a saying in screenwriting, give me the same thing but different.
Yeah, exactly. You got it. Keep changing, keep evolving.
Make it grow.
Which means,
What's happening?
I need to know the rules, but now I'm going to break them. I want to break them, but a little bit.
Learn the rules, but so you can break them later. Yeah, I gotcha.
I also heard saying that every story is really the same story, but told differently. Like all the way back to like, what's his face in Goliath?
David.
Well, you're talking about primal. Stories are
it's always
things
somebody who has to defeat something, whether emotional or like a monster, or you got to go through this butterfly effect, and it's
And Joseph Campbell, the zoologist Joseph Campbell, studied this his whole life, and he found that throughout every society and every culture, there are running stories that it's almost in our DNA. We will react to the hero's journey. We will react to that, and you can see it in every single movie made in Hollywood. It's usually some form of a hero's journey.
Tell you what, the day they make a comedy that's like has no obstacles, I will be so happy. Whenever I write my stories, Adam's always like, where's the
conflict?
Where's the call to adventure? Where's the conflict? You can't just have it be happy all the time. I'm like, why not? I want to watch positive, like happy people getting just like, oh, I won the lottery. Oh, I'm gonna build a new house and it's gonna turn out perfectly. I wouldn't mind that every now and then. I don't want to like ruin everyone else's fun, but I dare you to find a movie that is happy from start to finish.
This is what Jordan's saying. This is exactly what Jordan's saying.
Yeah.
There is an audience for
I guarantee
a
you,
happy movie.
if Christian exists, there's an audience for it, right? That's how all this works.
I mean, what are kids' movies, you know?
They even eat DuckTales. Oh my gosh, terrifying monsters and obstacles and treasure
All
hunts.
the antagonists, one way or another.
It's like, I want Little Mermaid without Ursula, although I love Ursula. She's hilarious. Her songs are great. But I would love just like a freaking happy from start to finish movie or comedy show. Like, why is that so weird for people to? But like you said, I guess I should do some more searching, Googling,
Yeah.
and because I'm sure there must be one. And then the audience.
That's a tough one. Honestly, like I was trying to think of random things that very few people would like, and that seems like a terrible movie to me. That you're probably one of only a handful that wants to see that particular movie. But it's out there, I promise.
Mary Poppins was great until they went to the bank.
You said, Larry, that are like in our DNA.
Don't go to the bank. Just keep it.
All right, I got this. Might be a little bit of a tangent. I got one more thought, one more theory.
Then we can probably close her up.
Okay.
I think we still have homework to do.
Oh, do we need to wrap it up? Totally.
Yeah.
After your thought.
After this.
Wrap it up. Your
All
thought.
right, this is my final thought for the night.
Okay.
I think a lot of this stuff, the breakdown in confidence that we're experiencing individually, are the repercussions of a much larger confidence breakdown societally that we're all caught in the middle of right now.
Yes.
I'm going to go as quick as I can here, but I think we're evolving in real time, and I think we can see the signs of it all around us.
Yes.
So basically what I think is that, excuse me, over the course of the last couple thousand years, essentially, sociopathy became a survival skill. Survival of the fittest, like you were talking about earlier, literally the need to survive the winter was the human imperative for thousands and thousands of years. And the ability to survive necessitated that I treat me and my children, our lives, as more important than all the other lives. And for us to survive as a species and as any human culture that exists here, we necessarily had to become sociopaths to get through the winter. And this was the only way that we survived for thousands of years. And it's why we basically turned into a species of genocidal rapists that just wandered around the planet taking shit whenever we wanted it, because we didn't know any other way. It was like kill or be killed was the only thing. And it's why it's why there's a patriarchy in charge in every culture in the world. The patriarchy just reigns supreme regardless of nationality or heritage. It has a million. It's why rape is sort of allowed most places, which is freaking absurd. Our whole human history is absorbed in this bizarre idolization of sociopathic traits. And basically, then we invented the internet. That's what I'm saying. All of a sudden, we were connected. And our dependence became interdependent, and it never ever was before. But our food supply is dependent on China just as much as it's dependent on my grandpa. That we're all codependent now. There's no way out of that equation as a society. So the reason that we are all experiencing this massive drop in confidence is because our survival skills don't work anymore. Because
Nailed it.
All the things that we've been told are what we need to be to survive are terrible ideas, are not only counterproductive to our survival, like individually and collectively, but they're usually just terrible sociopathic ideas where it's like, we just need to think of America first. That's a terrible idea, guys.
Yeah, terrible. Give us a solution real quick. What's the solution to that?
Well, I mean,
progress, not perfection. Keep striving to be
I think the solution is inevitable, and these repercussions, these convulsions are necessary, and they're just going to be painful. I don't know that I have any solution where it's like, this is the thing we do to fix society, but as individuals, keep your eyes on the future. Maintain your confidence in the fact that this is, let me put it this way. Maintain your confidence in the fact that the past seems terrible to you. It shows that we're evolving. History, all of human history was just how we are for all of time, basically until we invented the internet. And then all of a sudden we all looked at each other and we're like, so this is a brutal, like this is messed up, right? Like in a million different ways, this is happening all over the planet. And it's happening to the Iranian kids and the Cambodian and Zambian kids just the same way it's happening here. I've seen it all over the world. So the change is happening. It's already happened. And what we're witnessing is just the death throes of a dying paradigm. And it's, you know.
These are called, a more accurate way to describe it, shocks.
Yeah,
Shock.
exactly. We're
Like a
experiencing
shock.
shocks to the system.
And if you go back and read, Andrew Toffler wrote Future Shock. He wrote it like 35, 40 years ago. Exactly what's happening today, he predicted. But all he did was exponentially carry out the way things have gone in the past. But instead of these shocks, now they're bigger shocks, lower drops, higher. You know, the stock market goes up higher, but it drops lower, and it's compressed. So we're experiencing exactly what you're saying. These shocks, but closer together, and it seems like everything's out of control.
Absolutely. No, and it
not, you're
feels
right.
dystopic. We are all feeling it. It feels very dystopic, chaotic. No one.
The feeling, because we're animals and we're not used to staying at home with masks and all this bullshit that we have to go through.
Well, but some of this is like a grandfather had the relative security of knowing that the lessons he was teaching his grandchildren were real lessons. The farming techniques and the skills that he had were the skills that they were going to need to also survive the winter. And we just found ourselves in this place just like all of a sudden where like my nephews have to tell my grandparents how to use their cell phone. I have to teach them how to use the technology. It's all working backwards now. The future has become a black hole. And you used to be able to realistically look at your children and be like, this is how life is. And we just don't know that anymore. Like we can't realistically look at the next generation and tell them what 2030 looks like, let alone the future. It just doesn't exist anymore. So where consistency has been a survival trait, adaptability is becoming a survival trait. Where sociopathy used to be a survival trait, empathy is becoming a survival trait. And the people that possess these new traits are, the past dies hard. And it's just, you know, we're going to go through that and you're going to need to maintain your confidence in the interim.
One of the ways to maintain your confidence that I've found is to be in the present moment, be present, you know, not go unconscious. Because when you go unconscious, that's when, you know, you have shame attacks and all these kinds of things and everything feels terrible. But when you stay present to the moment, then you do your art and, you know, the next day you wake up and do it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Period.
And your art is both stupid and beautiful, no matter who you are. Your art is both stupid and unnecessary and beautiful and the most necessary thing on this planet. And those are both true at the same time for everyone. You can... Yes, all of the reasons that you think this is stupid are probably true, but that is not the completion of the story, for sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
Like one of my favorite comic books, its
Let's
art
end
is
on
pretty
that. That's-
terrible, but I think it's beautiful and it's
Exactly,
all its
that's right.
generations. You
That's
know?
right there.
I get excited to read it. I'm like, oh, I can't wait till Wednesday.
Absolutely.
Wednesday, it's gonna come out again.
It's very badly drawn, but it's some of the most meaningful art I've ever found in this world. It's exactly those things.
Yeah.
It all means something to somebody. Keep making it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. We did fantastic today. This was beautiful. Well done.
Thank you guys.
Yay. Yeah, this was
Thank
actually a
you.
really good podcast. Good.
The circle of thought that happened here was very impressive. And we were only an hour and 21 in. Sometimes it takes us a lot longer to get to any of these kinds of
To get to any information.
Resolute
Well,
or
kind of
like-
rambling.
Yeah, it was good. Well done. I would like to
Thank
have
you for
you
coming
back
on.
on again.
Yeah.
If
I
you
have
was
all the
cool.
time in the world. I'm always here.
You're
Believe
pretty
me,
easy to
there's
talk.
Nothing I enjoy more than rambling about philosophy and things I have no control over.
Oh,
It's pretty much my forte.
Yeah. Things I have no control over sounds like anxiety attack.
Pretty much everything. I can talk on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Gonna
Maybe the
end.
next one we'll get into some more specifics about how to coach a creative person when they've got the buzzer that's about to whatnot. But I think we did great for this
Yeah.
round
Here,
of
I'm
thoughts.
gonna
Okay, guys, let's
All right,
wrap it
everyone,
up.
wave.
You're excused, 'cause you're always late, overweight, and totally rude.